So I just got back from seeing It, the latest adaptation of Stephen King's novel and a remake of the old 1990s miniseries. And here is my review. Now, going into this, I wanted this to be good. I wanted this to be great because I want this movie to make a ton of money. This year for blockbuster movies has barely made anything. I think it's the least money-making season for summer since at least 15 years ago. So the idea of a horror movie coming out and getting a whole bunch of praise and making a whole bunch of money and saving the summer sounds pretty freaking awesome. And it would get horror a lot of respect, and hey, maybe we'd get more big budget horror movies. Nothing wrong with that. So I was wanting this to be awesome. I know a lot of other people were really looking forward to it. The question though, of course, is does it live up to the hype? Is it really that good? Is it great? Is it bad? Where is it? So here is your review to find out. Like with all my reviews, I'm going to go over the cons and then the pros and then say what I thought about the thing. So first off, the cons. There are some cons, they are significant, and we're going to go over them. Alright, this movie, it's a prime example of one of my old sayings, that the worst thing a horror movie can do is try too hard to be scary. I know that sounds silly, I know that sounds kind of weird, but when a horror movie tries way too hard to be scary, it's quickly degrades itself into nothing but random jump scares, cats running across the screen, and just the same generic scene played on constant loop because it's scary. And it quickly becomes very boring and very tiresome. There are so many movies that are considered good horror sometimes, like The Conjuring, which are really just nothing but cheap jump scares that just don't work very well. They try too hard and they fall flat on their face. And this movie is kind of a prime example of why trying too hard to be scary can be a bad idea. In the first 20 minutes, there's a bit too many jump scares, and a lot of them don't work, and there's just a lot of them. The director definitely loves his jump scares, and I should have definitely seen that coming because he directed the film Mama, which was just nothing but jump scares and didn't work. First 20 minutes is nothing but cheap jump scares a lot of the time, and nearer to the end, the horror elements, the scary elements try to become more scary, so they start to become more exaggerated and more over the top, and they start to become a little too exaggerated, to the point where they become comical. There's this one scene, which I'm going to title The Dancing Clown, and you're going to know it when you see the movie, that just tries so hard to be scary, it becomes comical, and it becomes really comical, and you just can't stop laughing. I was just laughing my head off during this dancing clown moment, and it is freaking hilarious. Also, I thought another big con of the movie was it liked to show off its R rating a little too much. I'm not complaining about the gore. The gore is awesome. Trust me on this. But what I am complaining about when I say it showed off its R too much is it gave a lot of the kid actors some pretty over-the-top dialogue. Like the director just wanted to put in as many swear words as he could, and pretty soon it starts to come off a bit like a South Park sketch. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it actually did work, but other times it seemed kind of overly preposterous that these kids would talk in this fashion. So some of the dialogue didn't work, a lot of the scares did not work, especially near the opening. But have you noticed that? I keep emphasizing that a lot of the scares, jump scares, and that were not working in the first 20 minutes. And that brings us to the pros, because this was starting to sound like a negative review, but it's not. No, it really feels like the director, while making this, was watching the dailies and started to quickly realize that a lot of what he was doing wasn't working and was harming the film. And then, unlike most directors, he said, fuck it, let's actually make a good movie. And he scrapped the elements that didn't work and started to focus in on the elements that did work. After the first 20 minutes, the movie stops with the jump scares and actually starts to become a pretty good movie. What does work? The character building. This movie has some really good characters when it allows them to breathe and grow and develop and doesn't give them over the top silly dialogue. But the characters are good. When they're allowed to breathe, they work. Also, the mythology of the town and Pennywise the Clown himself is kind of interesting. So when it builds up on that and breaks it down, that works really well. Also, this movie actually is scary at times, but it's not with the jump scares, it's more with the disturbing subject matter. You have a movie about a clown that eats kids. You have a movie with a dad that wants to have sex with his daughter. That crap is disturbing in of itself. You don't have to exaggerate it, overplay it, or anything. That shit, you don't need to do anything with that shit. That shit be scary. All you need to do is put that shit in a corner, let it just brood there, and people get pretty unnerved. And the movie eventually realizes that and starts doing that. It just has these very uncomfortable moments every now and then, and those scenes do work, and do work very well. Any scene where the dad grabs his daughter and starts sniffing her hair, that's scary. That's what gets to the viewer. Jump scares, they don't work. Sniffing hair, ooh. But yeah, so the mythology was good, the character building was good, and the disturbing elements were well handled. I also liked how the movie dropped a lot of breadcrumbs and hints about stuff without explaining it to the viewer. Like, for example, there's a lot of parents and grown-ups in this movie that act kind of off and act kind of dangerous. And by about an hour in, you're like, why is every single parent in this town either A, killer of some sorts, B, wants to sleep with his daughter, or C, is just really off and kind of scary? And as the movie goes on, it starts dropping more and more hints, and it starts to become very clear that the reason why everybody seems so dangerous is because Pennywise is actually manipulating them and slowly altering their mentality and making them dangerous. This is never right out stated. It's just more and more and more hinted at. And it's really cool putting the pieces together and slowly figuring it out and not have the movie tell you it. And you just kind of pick up on it over time. That's cool. That is really cool. I like it when a film has some faith in the viewer, and this movie definitely does. And there's a lot of little scenes in the movie that aren't really explained, but if you think about it for a little bit, you get it. Like, for example, they bring this cattle gun to fight the creature in one scene, and they're out of ammo. They're completely out of ammo, but only one kid knows this. And the other kid pulls out the gun and shoots Pennywise, the evil clown, actually hits him in the head, and he bleeds from it. But he was out of ammo. Well, the reason why it would have hit him and he'd still bleed from it is because the damage that is done to the clown, the evil Pennywise the clown, is based on belief and thinking it would hurt him. So that's really a cool play on things. Like, you don't actually need a gun that is loaded. You just need to believe it'll hurt the guy, and it still will. So that was a really cool scene, and it doesn't bother to explain it. It doesn't break it down. It happens, and if you've been paying attention, you get it. And I like that. I really like that. It rewards you for paying attention. Also, if you're a fan of the 80s, you're going to love this. It's full of little nostalgic nods and little music beats from the 80s. This movie has a really good soundtrack, by the way. Really solid soundtrack. Solid. So, I can definitely honestly say this movie worked a lot better when it was trying to be like the Monster Squad than when it was trying to be like Nightmare on Elm Street. The moments when it tries to be like the Monster Squad, an over-the-top, kind of campy, kind of funny film, it really works. It has this snide sense of comedy, and whenever the comedy element pops up, it works, and it really does feel like Monster Squad. There's this one moment where the kid's like, now I gotta kill this fucking clown, and that is like total Monster Squad, and it's kind of awesome. So when it played up the mythology, when it played up the characters, when it played up its snide sense of comedy, it worked. It worked really well. And yes, there are a lot of jokes in this, and a lot of them are pretty funny, and a lot of them are really working well. This movie definitely works better with its comedy elements than it does with its scare elements. Now, saying all that, the opening itself is actually pretty freaking scary and does work really well. Also, there's this bleeding sink scene, which I'm not spoiling anything, that's shown in the trailers. And that scene works really, 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 really well. That scene works so well and is so iconic. I think people are going to be talking about that scene for a couple of years from now, like maybe decades of years. That could become the new Jaws scene. That one single scene in the movie that nobody can shut up about. I mark my words, everybody's going to talk about that scene and how effective it was and how ineffective the dancing clown scene was. But honestly, the bleeding sink scene is amazing. You gotta see this just for that because it's cool. It is a cool, intense scene where the scares actually work and work well. So every now and then this movie really is scary, but what works is the comedy, the characters, and the mythology. I laughed quite a couple of times, and a lot of the parts that I laughed at were supposed to be funny and weren't just the movie slipping up. And the characters are well done. The acting in this is pretty darn strong for kid actors. Like, they clearly haven't done too many movies before, but they know what they're doing. When they're a little bit older, I hope they get hired for a whole bunch of stuff because they be skilled. They be skilled. Very skilled actors. So, yeah, I know I'm making this sound like a bit of a mixed bag, but keep in mind all the jump scares that don't work are in the first 20 minutes, and this movie's 2 hours. So there's actually a lot more that works in this than doesn't work. And the characters are so well done, like they're so likable, they're so nice. There's even a love subplot in this that I liked. And it's hard for me to like love subplots. I often find them annoying and forced and out of place. This actually worked. It was a good love subplot that actually worked. So the characters are so enduring, it makes you overlook stuff, and the movie ends up working really well. I'll say I like the 1990s version a little bit better just because that was a full movie and a full complete story, whereas this one, it's actually just the first hunk of the story. They've cut the story into 2. So it doesn't actually have a proper ending. And therefore, the 1990s version for me works a bit better because it has an ending. But what works about this movie really does work. And if you like Monster Squad or The Goonies, you're probably going to get a pretty good kick out of this. And like I said, the sink scene in this is amazing and the actors do a top-notch job. I kind of wish this movie didn't have so many jump scares in the opening, but I'm willing to forgive all that because the rest of the movie is pretty darn good. So I would definitely say see it. I would give it an 8 out of 10. It's definitely not the best horror movie of the year, though a lot of people will say is this actually got applause in the theater. So a lot of people liked it a lot more than I did. For my money, the best horror film of the year is Colossal, which was freaking amazing. So maybe see that too. But if you want to support a movie making a whole ton of money for horror, sure, go out, see this, watch it multiple times. Nothing wrong with a horror movie bringing in the bank for all of Hollywood so it can get more respect. That's what we're talking about. Anyways, yeah, 8 out of 10. Has a lot of flaws, but the characters, the mythology, and the snide comedy make up for it. And yes, there are a couple scenes that are actually scary, like the opening with George and the teeth and the bleeding sink scene. Those scenes are definitely worth seeing, so I would highly recommend it. 8 out of 10. I will probably watch it again. Solid flick. Have a great night, and cheers.